This is the Tending the Soul podcast. I'm your host, Maggie Hollenbeck. I'm a psychotherapist, writer, teacher, and an avid student of happiness. I am thrilled that we're here together. This podcast is all about mental health, how to heal it, protect it, and enjoy it. I'm excited to share what I've learned in my 20 plus years working in the field. If you want to take a more active role in cultivating stubborn gladness in your life and tending to yourself when the world hits you hard, this is the place for you. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the pod. I am really excited to share my very first interview on the podcast this week. I spoke a few weeks ago with Liisa Kovala. She is a Finnish-Canadian writer and book coach, and we had a really great conversation about Sisu. Sisu is what I call here on the podcast a foreign concept. It is a word that does not have a direct translation into English. It is one of my little delights in life, is finding words that don't directly translate. And I think that there's something really fascinating when you look at that, because in particular, I'm drawn to words that actually mean something very valuable in terms of our mental and emotional health. And the fact that those words don't actually have a matching word in our language speaks a little bit to how that character trait or that whatever it is, that quality is maybe not something that we really value or practice consciously in our culture. And Sisu in particular, I think, is really valuable. We will get into that. It is a Finnish word that roughly translates to the qualities of fortitude, of perseverance, of grit, guts, really like pulling up strength from your gut. The word Sisu literally means guts. That's the direct translation. But it's really about doing hard things and sticking with it, even when things are difficult, even when it seems an unwinnable prospect, but you stick with it anyway. And one of the things that creates is a stronger focus on what you've put into the endeavor than on what you got out of it, what the outcome was. I think that's super valuable for our mental health. So without further ado, I will share info about Liisa in the show notes, ways that you can get in touch with her, more about her work, and she'll share some as well in the interview. But I am excited to bring this to you today. Thanks. Enjoy. Liisa. Oh, I'm so excited to do this. Hi.
Oh, so great to see you. And thank you for inviting me here.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. So you and I met on Substack, and I think met over the concept of Sisu.
Yes.
Which I had posted about. And you have a long literary history, a creative history with that term and that concept. So we'll get into it a little bit. But why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about you and your work and whatever else you want to share?
For sure. I am currently a book coach and author, and I left teaching 2 years ago. So I taught for about 28, almost 30 years. And I just decided I was done. Like after the pandemic, a lot of folks thought, okay, maybe we're done with this. And I stayed for another year after the pandemic sort of slowed down and decided, okay, this is a really great place to leave my teaching career and move on to something else that I really wanted to do. And so now I work with authors in one-on-one and in group sessions. I'm on Substack. I'm just living the dream, writing and doing all the things that I wanted to do when I was really young and maybe was too afraid to do.
That's so great. And you have a podcast yourself, right? Called Women Writing?
I do. I have a podcast that I have a women writing newsletter that features other authors who are doing that work of writing, creating space and time to do that work. They give advice, some of their worst advice and best advice. It's really fun to see where they write and all of those things. And then in the podcast, we talk to, but also publishers and booksellers and publicists and people in the literary world to get those other insights into what the writing life is like. So I'm learning a ton and having a great time. And as a newbie, I'm learning the ropes, but it's all good.
Beautiful. That's so great. I love that you are like living in it while you're also figuring it out. Like you've given yourself permission to learn as you go rather than have to know all the things before I can start.
Yeah, I think that's a really common thing. People feel a need to have this sort of perfection. Everything has to be right in order and figured out before they step into whatever it is, marketing or promotion or starting a podcast or whatever it is. And I just think the only way to really learn is to do it. And I felt like that with my students too. You can give them a lesson and they will theoretically understand it, but until they put it into practice, they really didn't know it. And we know that as students ourselves, that that's the case. So I've just applied that to my everyday life and thought, okay, I don't have to be perfect here. I'm figuring it out. Hopefully it gets better over time. I'm learning from lots of other people. And I just don't think at this stage in my life, I need to worry about perfection. I really just want to work on progress and learning and growing as a person.
So great. It's making me wonder. I'm going to try to veer into our Sisu conversation from there because I learned from listening to your podcast that your first book, was it your first book called?
Yeah. It's called Surviving Studhof, My Father's Memories Behind the Death Gate. So my father was a 16-year-old Finnish merchant marine sailor. And just in the fall of 1944, his ship and three other Finnish ships were detained in Gdansk, or like at the time it was Danzig in Poland, and they were arrested by the Nazis and sent to concentration camp. Wrong time, wrong place, and he spent a great deal of time there. So at 84 years old, he told me of what happened, and so it took him decades to come around to be able to even open those death gates and let me know what was going on there. So that was the first book I wrote, and it was his story, and that was really important for our family.
Okay. So that was your first book. And then since then, you've written a book with Sisu in the title.
Yes.
Sisu
Yeah.
is the name of the character, right?
Yeah. So the character's name is Meri, which it means sea, but her nickname is Sisu. And because she demonstrates those kinds of qualities since a very young child, she had courage and determination and perseverance. So I wanted that to be an integral part of her character. And I set that story during the Finnish Winter Russian War, 1939, 1940. My dad was a little boy at the time, so he told me lots of stories. But my aunts and my grandmother, they were older and they experienced the war in a different way. And a lot of the women participated in the war as they were called Lotta Svards, which is a women's auxiliary organization. And so I thought, okay, I want to learn more about these really strong women during the war and their roles. So I decided to write a novel about a woman who is a Lotta Svard and goes to the front lines and experiences all of what that means. And then in the end, she ends up in Northern Ontario and gets early onset Alzheimer's. Another example of Sisu in action, right? Having to push through, keep moving forward despite ultimately that diagnosis is not going to be good.
And it's not about the outcome, but it's about how you meet the challenge, right? That's
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's the thing about Sisu is it is, I would think of grit as being a really important translation, although there's no real exact translation in English for Sisu, but that's pretty close. But it goes beyond just that courage and determination. It's really the fact that you don't know what the outcome will be, or even if you think the outcome is not going to be successful, you don't stop. You keep going, even though you don't think things are going to go well. Like in that Finnish Russian Winter War, the Finnish soldiers were completely outnumbered. They had poor military like equipment and weapons, and everything was against them. There's no way that they could win this war. And yet they held them off for 105 days and had very little loss of life compared to the Russians. So it was just a real example of how they decided to just keep pushing forward and not giving up. And I think we can see similar things around the world today where people are continuing despite everything against them.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds very much like what the Ukrainian people have been through, right? And this
100%.
Perseverance, this not backing down even in the face of really difficult odds.
Absolutely. In fact, I'd already written this book, and I think it was with the publisher at the time. And then the news started happening when the war broke out with Ukraine. And it was just like we started to hear about the Winter War in connection to the Ukrainian war on the news. And it was just coming back into the forefront. I thought, oh my goodness, you just don't expect. I've written this historical fiction book. I didn't expect to see something happening now. And the fact that it continues is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. So you grew up in Canada with Finnish parents, is that right?
Yeah. So my dad, after the war, came to Canada in 1951. And my mom actually was born here, but both her parents were from Finland, from the eastern side, closer to the Russian border. My dad was from the west side, in Oulu, closer to the Baltic coast. And so they met here in Sudbury. And there's a lot of Finnish people here in Sudbury, in Toronto, in Thunder Bay, especially Vancouver, quite a few Finnish folks as well. In I think Minnesota, Duluth area, that kind of in northern United States. There's a lot of immigrants that came, bonded together, created communities, often spoke in their own language for years and years. I had a friend whose mother, well, she claimed to never have didn't speak English, but I think that she probably she watched soap operas. She knew some English, but she lived her life in Finnish, and she could go to a grocer, she could go to the pharmacy and find somebody in Finnish who could speak Finnish to her. That is not really the case anymore. There are still lots of Finns, but the language, I think it dies out in a generation or two. Even I have some words, but I don't speak fluent Finnish. I can read a little bit, but it's sad to see how it peters out so quickly.
Yeah, but some of these words still persist, I would guess, in family cultures and get passed down. And in my research, the reading I've done so far about Sisu, I've been really struck by how integral it is. That it's the water that Finns swim in.
Yes.
And it's the water that Finnish children swim in, and they grow up with this value just so deeply embedded in who they are. And I wonder how you came to have your relationship with Sisu, how that was passed down to you.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know at what point I became aware that it was such an important concept. It was just something I knew, how you grow up with something. So it was always just part of who we were. But I think that I recognized it in action through my parents and my family and friends who, when really bad times happened or more terrible things happened in their lives, how they approached it and how we often talk about Finnish stoicism, like this kind of not a lot of emotion, emoting. Although I would say Finnish people have lots of emotion. It's just they don't necessarily display it in the same way, especially in times of real stress. So I think it was that I saw it in action and understood that was, you don't just give up, you keep going. I was taught, like, you start something, you finish it. Like, it's just that little things that made you think, okay, yeah. And then later I learned about system. I'm like, okay, that's what that is. That's that attitude towards life, about how to face, issues in your personal life or bigger issues that could really stop you and make you pause and maybe not even allow you to continue on, but digging really deep. Of course we can. We know how to do that. And I'm a person who thinks everyone has to, like, we all have it. It's just the Finns talk about it. We celebrate it. We've got the t-shirt, we've got the mug, the hat. It's on the license plates.
Yeah. I would imagine that maybe there came a time where you realized that not everybody has that so forward in their consciousness. Not everybody has grown up with that being valued overtly. But I think you're right that everybody has the capacity for it within ourselves. And it's a matter of just bringing conscious awareness to that and strengthening the muscle of it.
Totally agree with you. Yeah, I think it's accessible to all of us. I think a lot of people realize they have it. They may not name it, but they have it when they're in some kind of crisis mode. But it's not just about, that inner Sisu that you have individually, that it's about helping other people too, right? It's like community support. It's about supporting one another in times of trial. So that's part of Sisu as well, that it's not it's you and what's coming from you, but also that the community can buoy you up in those moments so that you can sustain that.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's actually not an aspect of Sisu that I have read about yet. Can you say more
Yeah.
about what that is and how that looks?
Yeah, I think it's just that we can think of all kinds of disasters and various things that have happened around the world. And we individually can only do so much. We can try to continue on, help our family, help ourselves, whatever. But it's when those things happen, we really do need to bond together to ensure that we can move forward. So you're gaining strength through each other instead of just trying to develop that within yourself to keep going, because I think it's so integral, especially right now with everything as it is in the world. We need to bond and we need everyone coming together and common purpose and goal. So I think it's, yes, important that we individually have that strength, but the strength and the ability to move forward collectively is really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. And it does require cultivating community. And I keep hearing that actually in a lot of different pockets as we're all grappling with this new political structure, not only in America, but all around the world with the trends and so forth. And I posted recently about Heather Cox Richardson, who's someone that I read pretty often. And she talked about how important communities and joy are in
Absolutely.
combating authoritarianism.
Yes,
That
100%.
that authoritarians actually can't take hold when there are strong communities, which makes a lot of sense in terms of the tactics that they use to divide people and to make people angry at one another and to lower trust levels.
It's really true. Yeah,
But,
that really resonates.
yeah, but the more that we can really take responsibility for showing up for our communities, for leaning on each other, for increasing trust among each other.
Yes,
That,
absolutely.
yeah, that's really
Yeah, I
crucial.
think that's really crucial. And that idea of Sisu comes into play because we have to have that fortitude, that strength, that courage to keep seeing that just whatever's happening right now isn't, oh, it's not the end, right? This is just a stumbling block, an obstacle. It's like we have to do something, we have to move forward, we have to connect with other people. But it would be really easy for a lot of folks right now to just throw their hands up and sit back and go, I can't do anything. And I'm not going to even try and just wait things out and see what happens. But I don't think that's the right attitude. I think everyone needs to find within themselves a way to respond to the issues that are happening and follow their heart and look forward to something maybe more positive, whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah. Yeah. To have something out there in the future that they're working toward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
My mind is going back to Finland in World War II because I believe that there have been a number of times where Finland has had to really fight for its independence, and it's sat right next to Russia. It's sat just above Germany, and during World War II, it went through quite a few trials, didn't it?
100% during World War II. So after the Winter War ended in 1940, they had a continuation war. And that was again with Russia. And there was I hesitate to use the word alliance because I'm not sure that's the right word, but in the face of war with Russia, they allied with Germany. So Germany was allowed to transport things through Finland. And then as soon as the war with Russia was over and the peace treaty was signed, Germany just said, okay, like Finland ousted Germany out of the country. And Germany was again immediately an enemy. So not that Finland ever was in alliance with their ideology. It was more oh my gosh, we're fighting against Russia. And Germany was willing to support them militarily to some extent. So it was a really complicated situation for this tiny little country with this gigantic neighbor, and Germany, as we know, what was going on there. And in one moment, my dad's ship is delivering goods between Finland, Poland, and Germany. And the next minute, they're in a concentration camp. So it was really not about political alliance as much as military decisions made to help Finland against Russia. It's this complicated situation, but yeah, it's really when the world learned about Sisu, because it started to be really evident that Finland was not going to back down. And even the New York Times wrote about Sisu, and it became a word that the world recognized, that previously was just a Finnish concept that had been around for centuries. But that's when it really came into the forefront during the war.
Wow, interesting. And I came upon this term through reading some books in the wintertime. And I have just fallen in love with this concept. And I think that there's something fresh for us to learn here with it, because I think that what I read about was that Sisu is a muscle that needs to be strengthened regularly. Agreed. And it's really easy to, I think, to start going down the path of like just looking for the easier way, or the more convenient way, or if it's not happening, then maybe it's not meant to be, or getting caught up in perfectionism, like we were talking about at the very beginning of this, right? Podcasting's hard. Like it hasn't been the easiest thing for me. Lots of technical difficulties. Writing a book is hard. I'm writing a book right now. These things are hard, and it can be easy to just veer back toward things that are creating less resistance, or that feel like a more instant gratification.
Absolutely.
I'm getting it right, so this is where I'm going to spend more of my time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, but I just love this idea of leaning into the hard things, and actually that there's a gift for you in leaning into the hard things, actually, regardless of how it turns out.
Yes, exactly. And I love that example of writing a book, because yes, we often write a book thinking about our reader or getting published or all of those things. But if you find joy in the journey of writing, that's the most important part. The rest is out of our control, right? We can submit to publishers, we can do all the things, we can self-publish, whatever we're going to do. But it's the journey of writing the book that is actually the gift. That should be the goalpost that we're going for, is doing the work. And a lot of times we're so focused on the outcome that if we don't think we can get to the outcome, we give up, or we have a lot of self-doubt or imposter syndrome or all those kinds of things. But if we just enjoy the process and understand that it's a heck of a lot of work, but we can get better and continue in small steps. And I think that Sisu, that resilience, that just not stopping because we have those doubts. Okay, I have doubts, but I'm going to keep going anyway. And I'm not going to worry what other people have to say about it. I'm just going to do the work. And I think that's so important for writers, especially.
Yeah, I know I really struggle with showing up to the page when nothing's coming like that. Yeah. It's hard to show up to the page anyway. Or when I spend an hour writing something and then I get to the end and I'm like, oh, that's not going to be usable. But it is and I am not acing this practice by any means, but the practice of just saying, okay, I'm going to stare down this page and I'm going to put something on it. And that's my workout for the day.
Yeah, 100%. And we've heard all the little sayings and things. What's that? You can't edit a blank page. It's just getting something on the page. It doesn't have to be good. That's not the goal, is just get it down, and then you can play with it. Then you can change it and do all the things. But yeah, I think that's probably the hardest thing for writers in particular to do, is just sit down to the page. I practice yoga, and the instructor often says the hardest part is coming to the mat. I'm like, oh, that's a metaphor for life, right? We just have to show up. Just keep showing up, and then the rest is going to come. And it's good or it's not good or whatever, but we don't have to judge that part. We just need to show up. And I think that's a lot about what Sisu teaches us. And there are ways to develop that muscle, I think. And there's a couple of things that I love about integrating Sisu into your everyday life. So one of them is, like you say, when you're writing to keep showing up, keep sitting down, keep working through. And the other is just some mindfulness, some getting out into nature, finding quiet spaces for yourself. For me, it's water. I need to see water. I need to be near water. I need to be in water. I love a sauna and a jump in a cold lake, like those kinds of things that are away from that busy everyday existence where everything feels like there's pressure or deadlines or a to-do list, and just dropping away from that for a bit and remembering breathing, remembering what who you are. And I think that helps you dig a little deeper into, yeah, this is going to be okay. We're good. We can do this, instead of rushing around and feeling I'm never going to get this done and I can't do this. And that kind of hamster wheel that our mind goes into.
Yeah. You read my mind, because that was actually going to be my question, if you have conscious practices. And I love that, or regular everyday practices. And I wrote recently about this new practice I have after reading about Sisu, of just taking a cold shower, like putting on the cold blast at the end of the shower. And I have to say, I have been floored by how quickly my body has been able to adapt to that. It was very uncomfortable at first, like super, super uncomfortable. But it actually only took about, I don't know, a week and a half for it to feel a whole lot less uncomfortable. It's not a warm, cozy thing.
Yeah.
But there actually is also like a strength that I can feel in, like, at the character level.
Yes.
By doing it. And every time I'm in the shower, I have that moment where I go, okay, am I going to do it today or am I not going to do it?
Yes.
And every time I have chosen to do it.
Yeah.
And it's gotten easier, but I actually think that's not the point or the biggest gift of it. The biggest gift is like knowing myself as someone who's willing to do it.
Yes. 100%. I can do hard things. Right? Like it is an example of that. I think I watched a program once, and I can't tell you the science of it, but there is a physiological result of doing those cold plunges and those cold showers. And it does change us in some way. But I think you're right about the psychological and the mental aspect of it is just enormously helpful. Finns have a tradition of either going from a very hot sauna and jumping into a very cold lake, or jumping from a very hot sauna and rolling into the snow. So that is another thing folks can try. I won't suggest that I have that as the snow part as a regular practice. I have done it. It is a shocker, but it's also extremely fun. But the hot colds is really an amazing feeling, makes you feel very vibrant and alive. And yeah, I think there's something mental about that.
A couple of weeks ago, I did the snow thing. I was out at an outdoor hot mineral spa, and it was outdoors, and there were these little pockets of snow on the ground. I didn't go roll in the snow, but I would get out and rub the snow on my arms and my legs and my chest. And I'm sure that it looked completely ridiculous, but it actually felt great.
Amazing. And we also have a lot of folks will put a hole in the ice in the lake. So they go from the sauna and then take a cold plunge in the lake. So the frozen lake. So that's a really common thing to do as well, if you have access to it. But same as like a lot of people have cold plunges now, baths outside that they do that on TikTok all the time.
Yeah.
And same idea is just immerse yourself, something difficult, something challenging for your body, but also makes you feel amazing. So things you can try. But if you're not adventurous, maybe in terms of that, I think even a walk in nature, just like breathing and connecting with the landscape, not being on your phone, not even listening to music or a podcast, just listening to whatever sounds are around you. I think that's so important. And we forget to do that. I know I'm guilty of it. I'll want to listen to a podcast or catch up on this or whatever. But if you just go, and not even necessarily go to get your steps in, right? Like just go to breathe and feel like immersed. That is so important. And we often don't do it for ourselves. And I think we need it.
Yeah. Yeah. There are so many benefits to going and spending time in nature without agenda, without distractions, to really fully be in the experience. Yeah, there's something I just recently read or heard something about the physiological benefits of listening to birdsong. It's a very unique thing, and actually, I think it probably releases those happiness hormones,
That
serotonin.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah,
I was just talking about walking. I was just out with my puppy on the lake. It's complete, like we've had a ton of snow. So we're just taking a walk on the lake, the beautiful sunshine, wide open spaces. It's gorgeous. And as we were just coming back in, just some birds were singing. And I thought I had to pause and listen because it's been a long winter and we haven't really heard those birds, but it just that between the sun and the sounds of the birds and this snow just reflecting the light, it just, okay, spring is coming. We're good. It just revived me. And I came inside ready to do some more work and just be able to focus in a way that before I went on the walk, I thought, oh, I should go for a walk with the puppy. Like it's almost like, I have to. And then coming back, it was like a total different mindset. So I think it's just so important for us to remember to do those things for ourselves. It's like part of the self-care idea, but when it comes to Sisu, I think we need that. We need to revive ourselves and just be in touch with nature and how we're feeling in the world. And then everything seems like a little less worrisome, a little less pressure filled. I think we can handle it a bit better. And we need to
yeah,
do that these days.
absolutely. And the last thing that comes to mind that you brought up earlier is the aspect of practicing Sisu through practicing community. And I have really noticed just recently, I've really been leaning into in-person showing up for my people.
Yeah.
And I think that the hurdle I have to overcome with that I think a lot of us are dealing with is just being too busy, being tired. Do I really want to get dressed and leave the house at the end of the day or on the weekend?
Right.
And especially after the pandemic, I really got used to like, I can have community online in my Zoom rooms or whatever. And there is some truth to that. Yeah. But there is no substitute. As I've been going out and really just practicing showing up and being with people and letting people know that I have their back or knowing that they have mine, it has been an incredible practice and incredibly strengthening for me to strengthen that muscle of getting out there and showing up. And you live in a small community, so I'm curious what you noticed there.
In this little community of Naughton that I'm in, so I mean, for me here, it's a great place to connect to the nature. I'm on the lake. I can walk in the bush. That really fills me. And I'm such an introvert. So I need that quiet moments. But I too feel like the community is so important. So I really make sure I get out to events here, support local authors, go to the Sudbury Writers Guild, meet with people in person to have a coffee instead of a Zoom. And I too have a writing community online, which is lovely. And I love to see them. But I think you're right. It's harder to understand how other people are feeling through Zoom. Whereas when you see them in person, you really feel it. And if you have some empathy for what other people are going through, that connection is that much more important because I think people are struggling. And if we can support one another and see each other and give them a hug and remind people that we love them, those are things that are super important that will help sustain all of us. And I love what you said, that it helps strengthen you, right? By going out and being with other people for other people, it's strengthening you too. I love that.
Absolutely. I also think that there's a way that being really in person around people and experiencing that sense of community is also restoring my trust in people.
Yes.
And that is very easily eroded online.
Yes.
So I think it's so important that we participate in those in-person communities where we can remember that this is a good person sitting across from me and that I can trust them.
Yes, I totally agree. I think I want to believe that the vast majority of people are lovely and wonderful and care about their families and about their future and all of those things. But it's hard to see that when you see a comment online that is negative because it's coming from a place of anger or frustration or whatever else is happening. But you're right. When we see people in person, we see a wholer picture of who they are. and how they're feeling about things. And you can have that conversation, and it might be difficult, but also it's enlightening, and it gives us empathy for each other. I don't know how well we can change each other's minds, but I think if we're open to conversations, that's all we have to do that, right? We have to be citizens of the world. We can't isolate ourselves into little pockets and say we're going to get nowhere that way. So yeah, I think that sense of community is just going to be so integral, and we have to start where we are. So those local groups or friendships and family members or whatever it is for individuals, and to lean on each other and support each other. And then we feel stronger individually, but we also feel stronger as a group.
Yeah, absolutely. Liisa, thank you so much. What a lovely conversation.
Oh, thank you. It was delightful. I was so thrilled when I saw that you were interested in Sisu. And the timing was so interesting when I saw you post about Sisu, because I think I'd just written a post about Sisu as well on Substack. And I thought, oh, there's somebody else out there who's interested in this. So hopefully others are too.
Yeah. Maybe we will do this again, but I really appreciate you taking the time. And just for everybody else, I'll include some information, your links and your Substack and so forth in the show notes so people can find you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Tending the Soul is produced by Maggie Hollenbeck, all rights reserved. Music is by Dimitro Kovalin from Pixabay. Thanks, Dimitro. Episodes will drop about twice a month, so if you like what you hear, you know what to do. Follow, subscribe, review, and share. You'll find more of my work at my home on Substack. Go to maggiehollenbeck.substack.com or click the link in the show notes. You can subscribe for free or choose a paid plan to become a part of my community with monthly care packages and more. Love that you stopped by, and I hope you'll make it a habit. Bye for now.